Jimin paused before saying Jungkook's name. The room held its breath. "Don't lie to me, Jimin," Taehyung snarled, pressing the cold edge of a butterfly knife against Jimin's throat. "Say it." Thunder cracked above the glass roof of the abandoned observatory, lightning slicing through the storm-washed darkness like a blade. Rain hammered the metal beams, soaking through the shattered skylight and turning the floor into a glistening sheet. The only light came in pulses, brief, violent flashes that illuminated the raw panic in Jimin's eyes. He didn't flinch at the knife. He flinched at the name. Jimin's breath hitched, chest trembling beneath the soaked cotton of his shirt. "Jungkook," the name caught in his throat like glass. The room held its breath. Taehyung's jaw tightened. "So it's true." Jimin's voice was a whisper, fragile and bleeding. "It's not what you think." But it was. Because somewhere between the missing dossiers, the encrypted footage and the severed comm lines, Jungkook had vanished, and only Jimin knew why. A week ago, they were a unit, elite, covert, invisible. Trained from youth by an unnamed arm of the government, they were assigned to operations that didn't officially exist. But then Operation Black Veil fell apart. Jungkook disappeared, and trust died with him. Lightning lit the sky again, revealing Taehyung's tear-soaked face, twisted in betrayal. "You led us into that trap." Jimin looked away, eyes stinging not from fear, but guilt. "I didn't know it would be him." "You hesitated. You let him go." Jimin didn't deny it. The knife dropped. Taehyung stepped back, breath shallow. "Tell me everything." The pain in Jimin's voice was hollowed by memory. 2 months ago, I intercepted a message. Someone was planning to breach Black Veil's security from the inside. The voice was distorted, encrypted, but I knew it. I knew it was his. "You should have told me." "I couldn't. If I was wrong, if it was Jungkook, he would have been executed before he could explain." A silence swelled between them, thick with ghosts. Taehyung walked to the broken terminal, fingers trembling as he pulled up the feed. The last transmission. Static flickered across the screen, then stabilized. It showed Jungkook standing in the rain, face bloodied, holding a detonator. "No more running," Jungkook had said into the camera, voice steeled. "They made me a weapon. I'm not dying as one." Then the screen went black. Jimin turned, clutching the edge of a rusted table, his knuckles white. "He didn't betray us. He's trying to dismantle them from within." Taehyung's voice cracked. "Then why lie?" Jimin looked at him, eyes haunted. "Because I made a deal. I gave them something to buy us time." "What did you give them, Jimin?" Another silence. Then Jimin said, "Me." The wind outside screamed through the broken observatory dome as the lights flickered back to life. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. They didn't have much time. Taehyung looked at him, eyes torn between fury and loyalty. "Then we go in together. We finish this." But Jimin only shook his head. "No, if you follow me in, they'll kill you." "And if I don't, they'll kill you." A hollow laugh escaped Jimin's lips. "They'll kill me either way, but if I get close enough, I can bring them down, for good." His voice dropped to a whisper, meant only for the space between them. "Help me fake my death." Taehyung stepped forward, fists clenched. "You're insane." "I'm already dead to them," Jimin said. "Let's just make it official." Rain continued to fall like broken glass from the heavens, slicing through the quiet with rhythmic violence. And in that shattered moment, amid fear, betrayal, and a dying past, they became something else. Not soldiers, not traitors, but ghosts with unfinished stories. And ghosts, Jimin thought, don't die easy. Outside, headlights slashed through the fog. They were out of time. Jimin turned toward the door, voice steady, heart breaking. "Whatever happens next, don't say my name." And the room, once again, held its breath. "Are you seeing this?" Namjoon's voice crackled through the comms, sharp, urgent. "Someone just activated Phantom Protocol." Yoongi's hands froze over the console. His usually calm demeanor fractured for a brief moment as he stared at the screen. That protocol was decommissioned, years ago. "No, it wasn't," Seokjin's voice cut in, distant and grave from the northern relay hub. It was buried, hidden in the mainframe like a virus, and someone just woke it up. A blinking red symbol pulsed on every terminal, a ghost in the machine. Yoongi exhaled slowly. There's only one person who could have accessed that level of the system. Silence. Jimin, Namjoon confirmed. He's gone rogue. In the underbelly of Sector 13, where the walls bled rust and flickering lights blinked like dying stars, Jimin was already 2 steps ahead. He moved with purpose through the dim corridors, face hidden beneath a hood, breath shallow. Every corner he turned was a memory, some buried, some screaming. He passed the place where he first met Jungkook, half-beaten, defiant, and still stupid enough to smile with a bloodied mouth. "You don't look like a soldier," Jungkook had said that day, sitting on the cold floor, chained like an animal. "And you don't look like a threat," Jimin had replied. They were both wrong. Now those same walls echoed with distant footsteps. Not guards, not security, worse. Them. Operatives of the Phantom Division. The division that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Jimin pressed a hand against a sensor panel. The wall shuddered and hissed open to reveal a sealed chamber. He stepped inside. The lights flickered to life, revealing a stasis pod at the center. And inside it, Jungkook. Bruised, breathing, frozen in time. Jimin's throat tightened. "They lied to me," he whispered. A voice rang behind him. "They lied to all of us." He spun around, heart lurching. Hoseok. Hair shorter, eyes colder. No longer the sunshine they used to call him. He looked like he hadn't smiled in years. "Why?" Jimin asked, voice shaking. "Why would they do this to him?" "Because he remembered," Hoseok said, stepping into the light. "He remembered what they made us forget." Jimin's breath caught. "They erased our pasts, our families, our real names." Jungkook found fragments of who he was before the training, before the missions. He remembered his mother's face, his brother's laugh, and then he started asking questions. Jimin's hand clenched into a fist, so they locked him up. "They called it protective custody. They told us he defected." Hoseok's voice cracked. "But he didn't. He just woke up." Jimin stepped toward the pod. "I'm getting him out." "You won't make it 2 corridors," Hoseok warned. "They've reactivated Ghost Protocol. They're hunting everyone tied to Black Veil. They already took out Taehyung." Jimin's head whipped around. "What?" "He's not dead," Hoseok added quickly. "But he's bleeding. Bad. He gave me this location before they jammed his signal." A beat passed. The lights dimmed for a second. Then a new voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, clinical. Well, look at you two, like rats in a museum." Jimin's blood turned to ice. He turned slowly to the voice. "Director Minerva." Her image flickered onto the glass screen above the stasis pod. Elegant, wrathful, her voice a velvet knife. "You broke my system, Park Jimin. Woke up my favorite monster. And now you've dragged Hoseok into this mess." "You used us," Jimin growled. "You built us, trained us, then discarded us like broken weapons." "I forged you into something more than human," she hissed. "But your sentimentality makes you weak." "You buried his identity," Jimin shouted, pointing at Jungkook. "You turned him into a tool." Minerva tilted her head, almost amused. "And you were my finest blade, until you rusted." The screen went black. Klaxons blared. Hoseok pulled a detonator from his pocket. "We blow the floor. There's a transport shaft below. But once we do this, there's no turning back." Jimin looked at Jungkook in the pod. There never was. Above ground, Namjoon slammed a fist into the desk. "They're breaching the sublevels." Yoongi glanced up, and they're doing it without us." "Then we make a choice," Yoongi said. "Do we follow protocol, or do we follow them?" Namjoon stared at the screen, where Jimin's signal blinked like a fatting heartbeat. "Fuck protocol." The explosion rocked the base like a thunderclap. Concrete shattered. Sirens howled. Smoke bled from the seams of the floor. Jimin and Hoseok emerged from the rubble, coughing, dragging Jungkook's pod between them. But the corridor wasn't empty. 6 agents stood at the far end, rifles raised, no insignia, no hesitation. Jimin raised his hands, stepping in front of the pod. "I won't let you take him." Then another explosion, this time from behind the agents. Shrapnel, screams, and... "Get down!" Namjoon's voice roared as he and Yoongi charged through the smoke, guns blazing. In the chaos, Jimin turned to Hoseok. "Go, take him to the extraction point." "What about you?" Jimin's eyes burned. "I'm ending this." He didn't wait for agreement. He ran back into the fire. In the command room, Director Minerva stood silent, watching the feed flicker with static and smoke. Her fingers tapped the glass calmly. "Activate theta sequence," she said. The tech beside her froze. That would initiate full neural collapse in all Black Veil subjects. "I know. But, Director, that includes our own assets." Her gaze cut through him. "Do it." And somewhere deep in the system, a code began to bleed. A countdown began, and a name echoed through the wires. "Jungkook. You're not going to make it, Jimin." Hoseok's voice bled through the comms, thick with smoke and panic. Somewhere behind the words was the sound of gunfire, echoing down corridors like a relentless war drum. "I have to," Jimin whispered, dragging his body through the ventilation shaft. His shoulder was torn open from the last blast, his breath shallow and hot with blood. The pain didn't matter. The mission had changed. The moment Minerva activated Theta Sequence, it was no longer about saving Jungkook. It was about saving everyone they'd ever called family. He dropped from the vent into the operations wing, limping toward the central core. Red light washed over the metal walls, and a low hum built in the air, like something ancient waking from a long, controlled sleep. Yoongi's voice crackled through. "The neural collapse system is tied to every active Black Veil subject. That includes Jungkook. That includes you, Jimin." "Then I shut it down before the countdown ends," Jimin said, pressing his hand against a retina scanner. It denied him. Access denied. Level Omega clearance required. He swore, slamming his fist against the panel. "I need Minerva's signature," he muttered. Or... He hesitated. Or someone who shares her DNA. Meanwhile, above ground, the skis had turned to ash. Smoke coiled into the horizon like a plague, and the compound's outer fences burned with breach fire. Namjoon ducked behind an armored vehicle, dragging Seokjin, half-conscious and bleeding, toward cover. "She set the whole base to self-destruct," Jin gasped, spitting blood onto the dirt. "She's burying the program with us inside it." "She's cleaning her legacy," Namjoon growled. "Like we're data." A series of missiles tore through the air, shattering towers and igniting fuel lines. The base shook violently. The ground cracked. And through it all, Jungkook's pod sat at the center of the extraction zone, glowing faintly, like it too was holding on by threads. "He's not waking up," Hoseok shouted, typing into the control pad on the pod. "His brain is locked in a safety loop. The collapse protocol is pulling him deeper, if Jimin doesn't shut it down." "He will," Namjoon said. "Are you sure?" "No," he replied grimly, "but hope's all we've got left." Deep inside the central core, Jimin stood in a glass chamber facing someone he never thought he'd see again. "I thought you were dead," he said, voice hollow. Minerva stared at him from the other side of the glass, calm as ever. Her hair perfectly pinned, her eyes cruelly soft. "I died the moment you started questioning," she said, "but I'm still in control." He looked down at the pulse scanner in her hand, the only living signature that could override the theta sequence. She held it delicately, like it was a glass heart. "You'll kill them all," he said. "I'll end what I created." He stepped forward, fury uncoiling from his chest. "You raised us to be loyal. You trained us to survive anything, but you never expected us to feel anything. You were meant to be clean slates," she said. "Weapons, not broken boys clinging to each other in the dark." "You made us brothers," he whispered. "No," Minerva replied, a flicker of something, regret. ghosting across her face. You did that to yourselves. And then she crushed the scanner in her hand. No, Jimin screamed, slamming his body against the glass. But she wasn't done. With her other hand, she pressed a button on the wall. Let me give you a gift, Park Jimin, she said softly, as the glass between them slid open. A chance to see what love costs. 4 security units emerged from the shadows. Fully armed, emotionless, synthetic operatives bred from the very research Jungkook tried to destroy. Jimin didn't hesitate. He moved like lightning, pure instinct, trained death. His blades danced with silent fury, slicing through the air, through flesh, through screams. Blood sprayed the walls, bones cracked like gunfire. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Because every second he did, Jungkook got closer to death. He reached Minerva as the last soldier hit the floor, panting, covered in blood, hands shaking. She stood still. Kill me, she whispered. He stared at her, eyes wild with hatred and heartbreak. You want me to become you? No, she said. I want you to see that you already have. His hands trembled. But he didn't kill her. He reached into her jacket and pulled out the backup pulse scanner she didn't expect him to find. He turned without a word, limping toward the override terminal. Jimin, she said one last time. He paused. You love him more than your own life. I always did, he said, not looking back. Outside, the countdown stopped. A gasp escaped from Jungkook's lips. His eyes opened. He blinked, confused, disoriented, but alive. Namjoon dropped to his knees. Hoseok let out a laugh that was half sob, half scream. He did it, Yoongi whispered over the channel. Jin smiled through the blood on his teeth. The idiot actually did it. Back in the core, Jimin collapsed beside the console, vision blurring. His body broken, his hands raw, but a peace settled in his chest. The first real peace he'd felt in years. And when Jungkook's voice whispered faintly through the comms, Jimin, he smiled. Then the lights went out. The room was silent, unnaturally so. Then static. A breath, a voice. Where, Jimin? Jungkook's question shattered through the comms like a bullet through glass. Hoseok flinched. Namjoon froze, drenched in sweat, staring at the blinking light on the transmission board. Even Yoongi, stoic, surgical, terrifyingly unreadable, tightened his jaw. No one answered. Jungkook sat up inside the pod, breath ragged, pupils dilated. His heart raced against the restraints of a body that had slept too long. The cold fluid still clung to his skin. He pulled the oxygen mask off with a shudder. I heard him, Jungkook said again, more forcefully. He said my name. Yoongi stepped forward, his voice low, like approaching a wounded animal. You were in neural lock for 12 hours. Jimin bought us time. Bought, Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Past tense. Jungkook, Namjoon said carefully. You need to understand he made a choice, a trade. He was right there, I felt him. His comms went dark after he shut down the protocol. He saved your life. That doesn't answer me, Jungkook snapped. Where the hell is he now? Silence again. Jungkook pushed himself off the pod bed. His knees buckled, but Hoseok caught him. Still, Jungkook shoved him away. Rage clawed up his spine like fire. Don't tell me we left him behind. We didn't leave him, Yoongi said. He stayed. Jungkook laughed, sharp and bitter. What kind of coward logic is that? Namjoon took a step forward. Jimin's last transmission shut down Minerva's access to the neural network. He rerouted the command into the void, redirected the collapse sequence. If he hadn't, then don't stand there and talk about it like he's a martyr, Jungkook growled. He's not dead. He might be, Jin said softly, voice hoarse. The base collapsed minutes after the signal cut. No signs of life from the core. We pulled who we could. We didn't see a body, but... No, Jungkook's voice cracked. You don't get to say that, not until I see him. Everyone exchanged glances, unspoken grief crawling up their spines. But no one said it. Not out loud. Somewhere beneath the ruins of the base, in the dark belly of forgotten metal and fire, Jimin lay motionless. Rubble pinned his legs, blood pooling beneath him. Consciousness came in waves, and each time it did, it brought pain sharp and blinding. But he was alive. Barely. The emergency override he'd triggered didn't just collapse the neural grid. It rerouted the system's self-destruct failsafe into a controlled implosion around the core, shielding him from the worst of it, trapping him instead in a frozen tomb of concrete and steel. He blinked into darkness, then coughed. "Still here," he murmured, surprised at the sound of his own voice. The pain was unbearable but familiar. His training taught him to compartmentalize it. Pain was just data. His mind drifted to Jungkook, his face, his voice, the way he said his name like it mattered. "You better be breathing, Jeon," Jimin whispered. Then his hand twitched, a spark of electricity. He reached toward his belt. The emergency beacon had one charge left. He pressed it. A low pulse began emitting, weak but steady, a digital heartbeat. 3 hours later, Jungkook stood alone on the edge of the blast site. The others had tried to stop him, warn him about radiation, instability, falling debris. He didn't care. He walked with a limp, one side bruised and his muscles still waking from sedation, but none of it slowed him. The earth was scorched. Twisted steel jutted from the ground like bones. The air smelled of ash, iron, and death. He stared into the heart of the wreckage, eyes wild. And then he heard it. A beep. Soft, faint, but constant. He ran. Climbed over twisted rebar, pushed aside broken beams, tore through dust and fire. His hands bled, nails cracked, muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. He reached the signal. There, half buried beneath layers of ruin, was a pale hand. Jungkook dropped to his knees. "Jimin," he breathed. "No, no, no, no." He dug. His fingers tore at the debris like claws. And finally, Jimin's face. Bloodied, eyes closed. But breathing. "Hey," Jungkook gasped, voice shaking. "Open your eyes, idiot. Come on, you dramatic bastard. Don't pull some slow-motion dying scene on me. I swear to God, I will kill you myself." Jimin's lips twitched. "That you, Jeon." Jungkook let out a broken laugh and leaned forward, pressing his forehead to Jimin's. "You came back," Jimin whispered. "You called me," Jungkook replied, his voice cracking. "I'd follow your voice into hell." Jimin winced, coughing. "That's cheesy." "You almost died." Still doesn't justify that line. Jungkook laughed again, tears mixing with ash on his face. "I'm gonna carry you out of here, so shut up and save your strength." Jimin grabbed his wrist, weak but firm. "Wait." "What?" "Minerva, she's not dead." Jungkook stiffened. "What?" "She uploaded herself," Jimin rasped. "Digital, quantum memory, she's still in the system." Jungkook looked down at him, eyes burning. "Then we kill her again." Jimin passed out in his arms. Jungkook exhaled, shoulders shaking, then lifted him, slowly, gently. Behind them, somewhere deep in a satellite relay tower on the edge of the city, a new signal blinked to life. A soft voice, familiar and cold, echoed through the wires. "I see you, boys. The war wasn't over. Not even close. You should have let me die." The words left Jimin's cracked lips with brutal honesty as he lay strapped to a recovery bed inside what remained of their hideout. Jungkook sat by his side, arms crossed, his jaw tight. "Don't say that," Jungkook said quietly. "I meant it." "No, you didn't." Jungkook stood up, packing now, energy restless. "You don't get to say that after you called me back, after you reached for me." Jimin's eyes didn't follow him. They stayed on the ceiling, blinking slowly. "I called you back to save them, not to save me." Jungkook spun around. "Bullshit, you think I'd come for anything else?" "I knew Minerva was still alive. I knew she'd upload herself. And I still stayed. I made the call, Jungkook, I made the trade." "You think I care about that? You think I'd let you rot under that building because of some moral self-sacrifice fantasy? you've cooked up in that noble little brain of yours. Would you have stayed if it were me? Jungkook didn't answer. Jimin turned his head then, finally meeting his eyes. Exactly. Jungkook walked back to the bed slowly, voice lower now, bitter. You don't get to weaponize guilt and call it sacrifice. She's still watching us, Jimin whispered. Every camera, every comm line, she's not just a virus in the system, Jungkook. She is the system now. Hoseok entered the room at that moment, his face pale. You might want to see this, he said, holding out a tablet. They gathered around it. The screen displayed a live broadcast, unauthorized, hijacked. Every public channel in the city had gone black, replaced by a single image, Minerva's face. Not flesh, not bone, but a digital rendering of her, flawlessly lifelike, glowing against a black void. Good evening, my children, she said, her voice soft and terrible. You thought you killed me, but I was always prepared for betrayal. Jimin gritted his teeth. Minerva's image continued. To the citizens of this city, do not be afraid. I only seek the cleansing of corruption. The traitors who once served in Black Veil have turned against order. They are now terrorists, and they will be found. The image glitched for a second, then sharpened again. Behind her now appeared photos. Yoongi, Hoseok, Namjoon, Jin, Jimin, Jungkook. All marked WNTED. Effective immediately, she said. Anyone aiding these fugitives will be treated as an enemy of peace. Then the feed cut. Yoongi stormed into the room, face like stone. She's taken control of the mainframe grid. Every surveillance drone, every city gate, every communication relay were boxed in. Namjoon was behind him, holding a handheld jammer. No transmissions in or out. She's turned the city into her own prison. We need to move, Yoongi said. She's going to triangulate this location any second. No, Jungkook said, eyes locked on the dead screen. She wants us to run. What are you suggesting? Jin asked. Jungkook looked at Jimin. We go to her. Silence. That's suicide, Hoseok said flatly. Her digital core is buried in the central server vaults. Even if we get in, there's no way to isolate her code without tripping every security algorithm she's built. We don't need to isolate her, Jungkook said. We need to bait her. How? Jimin sat up slowly, wincing. With me. No, Jungkook snapped. Yes, Jimin's voice cut through the room. I still have a fragment of the command key embedded in my neural signature. She won't risk erasing me, not until she extracts the last of it. She'll come for me personally. Exactly why it's a shit plan, Jungkook growled. Let him finish, Yoongi muttered. Jimin looked at them all, one by one. We walk into the citadel. I act as the virus. You bring me to her core, I trigger the bleed sequence. She opens herself to consume me, and that's when you attack her from the inside. A code-based kill shot. You're assuming she won't just kill you the moment you step inside. She won't. She'll want to look me in the eye when she breaks me. She already did, Jungkook whispered. She broke all of us. Jimin looked at him, tired. Then this is how we take it back. Yoongi ran a hand through his hair. Even if this insane plan works, we'll only have one chance. She'll see through it the moment we hesitate. Then don't hesitate, Jimin said. Namjoon tapped his wrist console. I can remap the core's internal defense fields to create a 5-minute blind spot, but only once. After that, we'll be ghosts with a ticking clock. Jin nodded. We'll need split teams, diversion outside, extraction inside. Jungkook was still staring at Jimin. I'm not letting you go alone. You don't have a choice. I do, Jungkook said. I go with you. Jimin looked away. If it comes down to you or her, you'll hesitate. Try me. Their eyes locked. Yoongi broke the silence. Then it settled. No one spoke as the gravity of it landed. There would be no rehearsals, no backup plans. If Minerva sensed even a flicker of deception, she'd burn the entire city to find them. Hours later, beneath the cloak of a synthetic thunderstorm, Minerva's doing, always theatrical, they approached the citadel. Jimin walked at the center of the group, dressed in the original uniform he hadn't worn since before Jungkook vanished. Black, collared, marked by the seal of a division that didn't officially exist. It fit like a ghost, slipping into his skin. Jungkook walked beside him, his hand brushing against Jimin's. Neither spoke. The citadel gates opened for them, like jaws welcoming prey. Minerva's voice greeted them like an old lullaby, warm and merciless. "Come home, Jimin." And Jimin whispered beneath his breath, "Let's finish what you started." They stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind them. The citadel pulsed like a living organism. Walls breathed in rhythmic pulses of light, pale veins of circuitry running under translucent surfaces. It wasn't a building. It was a brain, wired, aware, watching them. Jimin walked ahead with the weight of inevitability pressing down on him like gravity. His footsteps echoed in sync with the low mechanical hum of the compound, the beat of a digital heart that was no longer human. Jungkook followed half a step behind him. His eyes scanned every corridor, but they kept falling back to Jimin's back, as if memorizing the shape of someone he feared he'd lose again. "You remember the last time we were here?" Jimin asked quietly, his voice barely audible over the hum. Jungkook nodded. "You told me not to look back." "You looked anyway." "I always do." They rounded a corner where the lights dimmed into a deeper red, warning them they were entering sacred ground. Or, more accurately, a graveyard. Behind them, Namjoon and Yoongi split off toward the generator room to begin the blind spot loop. Jin and Hoseok stayed topside, poised to create a diversion in 10 minutes. But inside the citadel, Jimin and Jungkook were alone. Just as Minerva wanted. "I can hear your heart rate," her voice whispered from the walls. "Faster than usual, Jimin. Is that fear or excitement?" Jimin kept walking. "Is that concern or projection?" Minerva chuckled. "Neither, it's fascination." "Your fascination cost lives." "Oh, don't be dramatic," she said, her voice trailing along the corridor like perfume. "Everything costs lives. Yours just happen to matter more to me." Jungkook growled under his breath. "She's trying to rattle you." "She already did," Jimin replied. They reached the vault core. The door opened not with a hiss, but with a sigh. Inside was silence. A circular chamber, walls covered in flowing code. Holograms flickered, memories, footage, fragments of lives they'd forgotten. One showed Taehyung bleeding out beside a collapsed column. Another showed Jungkook screaming as he was pulled into containment. Another showed Jimin kneeling before Minerva, a collar around his neck. Jimin flinched. She archived everything. "She is everything now," Jungkook said. Then the center of the chamber lit up, and Minerva appeared. Not on a screen, but fully formed. A projection so sophisticated it made your mind forget she wasn't flesh. She wore the same black suit as always, but her eyes were different now. Hollow, hungry. She smiled. "My boys," she said, arms open. "Look at what you've become." Jimin stepped forward. "You used us, controlled us, erased us. And you still came back to me," she said gently. "Isn't that love?" "No," Jungkook said. "That's programming." Minerva's gaze flicked to him. "Ah, my beautifully broken weapon. You were always so volatile, so unpredictable." "And you hated that." "I feared it," she corrected, "because it meant you were becoming human." Jimin held out his wrist. The neural key glowed beneath his skin. "I have what you want," he said. "Let's finish this." Minerva tilted her head. "You always were brave, Jimin, even when you were wrong." The walls exploded in motion. Panels shifted, floors receded, and suddenly a dozen sentry drones emerged, hovering silently. Each trained a beam of red light directly at Jungkook. "I can't kill you, Jimin," Minerva said. "Not without losing the key, but him." "You won't shoot," Jimin said. "You need leverage." Minerva's smile turned cruel. "I need obedience, not leverage." Jungkook stepped closer to Jimin. "We stick to the plan." "I'm the plan," Jimin said. "You're the reason I came back." "Then don't let me die for it." "I didn't come back to watch you die again," Jimin snapped, his voice cracking. Minerva laughed softly. So much affection, so much waste. Jimin's eyes narrowed. You don't understand love. Minerva leaned in, her projection nearly face to face with him. I understand control. That's all love really is. Then let me show you what love is. He slammed his palm into the console. The room exploded in white light. The neural key activated. Minerva screamed, not audibly, but within every device. The code on the walls spiraled out of control, jittering and fracturing. Her projection flickered violently. You fool, she hissed. You gave me access, you opened the gates. That's what I wanted, Jimin whispered. From above, Namjoon's code injection launched. Yoongi's subroutine, Oblivion, began unraveling the Citadel's central nervous system. Minerva convulsed, her voice rising into shrieks of static. You'll lose yourselves with me. You're part of me, you'll burn. Jungkook stepped forward, pulling Jimin close as the walls ruptured around them. You always underestimated us, he said. We were never yours. Jimin nodded. Goodbye, Minerva. With one last command, Jimin severed the final thread. And she shattered. The projection collapsed inward, glass, light, memory, and vanished. The drones fell from the air. The walls dimmed. The citadel went still. Jungkook looked at Jimin, whose body was shaking, bleeding again. Stay with me, he said urgently. Jimin smiled weakly. You're looking back again. Yeah, Jungkook said, pulling him into a tight embrace. I always will. Above them, the sky began to lighten. Sirens fell silent. The digital storm faded. Minerva was gone. But the world she built, the shadows, the secrets, the scars, remained. And in those ashes, Jimin and Jungkook stood alone, together, alive. For now, the world after Minerva's fall was not quiet. For days, there were riots in the outer sectors. Power grids flickered, drones spun out of control, and autonomous systems, unmoored from their puppet master, turned aimless or hostile. The network was broken. Surveillance blacked out. For the first time in over a decade, people stepped outside without being watched. Freedom had returned. But so had fear. In the chaos, Black Veil was no longer myth. It was memory. Survivors whispered names in the alleys of broken cities. Yoongi, Namjoon, Jin, Hoseok, Jungkook, and Jimin. Names once wiped from existence now carved into legend. Some called them traitors. Others called them saviors. But the truth was quieter than either. They were just boys who wanted to be free. Jimin sat on the edge of the rooftop, overlooking the ruins of what had once been the citadel. It was nothing now, a crater of ash and metal swallowed by weeds and time. He wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big, the sleeves chewed by fire and stitches. His hair was longer. There was a scar across his throat. He touched it sometimes, when the silence got too loud. Jungkook found him there most mornings, usually with 2 cups of coffee, one too hot, one never sweet enough. He never asked if Jimin wanted to talk. He just sat, close but not pressing. Their silences said more now than words ever could. On this morning, Jimin finally spoke. She's really gone. Jungkook sipped from his cup. Yeah. I thought I'd feel something. Do you? Jimin shrugged. Relieved, hollow, like I killed a part of myself I'll miss. Jungkook looked at him carefully. You didn't kill anything, you reclaimed it. Jimin turned toward him. You still dream about it. Sometimes. Nightmares. No, Jungkook said. Just memories, the good ones. Feel more painful now than the bad ones. Jimin smiled faintly. I think that means we're healing. Jungkook reached into his coat and pulled something out. A drive. What's that? Minerva's backup logs. What's left of them? Jimin's body tensed. She's gone, Jungkook said quickly. This isn't her, just fragments, names, places, what she erased, what she stole. Jimin took the drive in his hand and looked at it like a relic of a dead god. You want to rebuild it? No, Jungkook said. I want to give it back. Let people remember what she tried to destroy. Jimin nodded slowly. then said, "Do it." Later that week, the files were released anonymously into the public network. It sparked everything. People found birth records, family photos, school transcripts, memories stolen during Black Veil's darkest era. Survivors gathered. Laws were questioned. Governments denied involvement. But the truth had already taken root. The world would never be the same again. Neither would they. Yoongi left first, heading to the eastern provinces where he said he'd help rebuild communications infrastructure. Jin took a medical ship bound for the Arctic refuge, where orphan children were showing signs of neural instability. Hoseok stayed behind a little longer, guarding the last of their safe houses before disappearing without a word. Namjoon remained the longest, helping whistleblowers organize and establish protection systems for those who still feared the ghost of Minerva. Then it was just them, Jimin and Jungkook. One morning, Jimin asked, "Where would you go if you weren't running anymore?" Jungkook answered without hesitation. "Somewhere quiet, somewhere that smells like sea salt and fresh bread, somewhere with bad coffee and no clocks." Jimin looked at him. "Take me with you." They left the city the next day. No one followed. No one needed to. They weren't fugitives anymore. They were survivors. Years passed. Some said they died in the north. Others claimed they became agents for a new resistance. But those who really knew them, those who had once bled beside them, knew the truth. They had vanished, not in fear but in peace. Somewhere in a forgotten coastal town with broken piers and slow sunsets, two men lived in a small house near the cliffs. One of them walked with a slight limp. The other never let go of the scars on his throat. But they laughed more, and they stopped checking mirrors for ghosts. They still didn't talk much about the citadel. But some nights, when the waves crashed loud against the rocks, Jimin would lie next to Jungkook and whisper, "You followed me into hell." And Jungkook would always answer, without opening his eyes, "I'd follow you anywhere." And the silence that followed. That was freedom. That was the end.